Ravenwood High School did not resemble the ancient institution seen in horror films. It didn't have moss-covered walls or the creak of rotting wood. On the contrary, it was brutally modern. Everything was angular, sterile, and polished to a mirror shine under cold, white fluorescent lights. Elena Moore walked through the gray stone entrance at exactly 7:40 a.m. every morning. She noticed that, even at the height of autumn, not a single dry leaf ever remained on the path leading to the main hall. It was as if the ground itself consumed anything that belonged to the cycle of decay. Elena sensed the school's scent before she even saw it. It was a cocktail of harsh disinfectants trying to mask something else, the smell of rotting wood and rusted metal. Every time she inhaled, her chest tightened, a bitter sensation, as if she were swallowing years of chalk dust. This morning, when Elena opened her desk, she didn't find her textbooks immediately. Instead, there was a small scrap of paper, yellowed and out of place amidst her tidy belongings. The words on it weren't written in ink, but in rough pencil, pressed so hard they nearly tore the paper. "Are you sure you've never left this place?" Elena's heart skipped a beat. This handwriting, the slant to the left, the slightly elongated cross on the E, it was an exact replica of her own. But she had never written this, or rather, she had no memory of ever having the thought. Mrs. Hawthorne's literature class was located at the end of the first-floor hallway, where the sun never directly reached. Mrs. Hawthorne was a woman without age. Her skin was as still as a windless lake, and her eyes always stared at a fixed point somewhere behind the students' shoulders. "We study tragedy," she began, her voice low and steady like an old radio broadcast. "But the greatest tragedy isn't death, it is replacement." She wrote a single word on the board: palimpsest. In ancient times, people used parchment to write. Because it was expensive, when they wanted to write a new story, they would scrape away the old text. But no matter how thoroughly they scraped, traces of the old story remained, ghosting beneath the new lines. She turned around, her gaze locking onto Elena. "There are memories that do not belong to you, yet they vibrate in your marrow every time a bell rings. That is because you are a palimpsest, a new story written over the ruins of a tragedy that has been erased." The class was deathly silent. Elena felt cold sweat dampen the back of her neck. She looked down at her pristine notebook, and in a momentary hallucination, she saw bright red lines appear and vanish instantly. At the back of the room, Daniel Cross was watching her. Daniel was the kind of student whose name teachers often forgot. He never spoke, never joined clubs. He just sat there, right next to the fire exit, as if waiting for the slightest signal to bolt and vanish forever. He mouthed two words, soundlessly: "Don't trust her." Lunch hour at Ravenwood was a perfectly staged play. The clatter of plastic trays, the laughter of the football team, the whisper of cliques, it all created a wall of white noise that made it easy to forget how to think. Maya Collins was rambling about the upcoming prom, but Elena heard none of it. She was staring at a group photo on Maya's Instagram from last summer. "Maya," Elena interrupted, "do you see the person standing between Lucas and Daniel?" Maya paused, looking at the screen. "There's no one there. It's just a gap I left for some digital stickers." Elena took the phone. In the photo, Lucas had his arm draped over empty air. His arm was bent at a strange angle, as if resting on the shoulder of an average height. If one looked closely at the grass below, there were two faint shadows that didn't belong to anyone in the frame. "There was someone named Claire," Elena whispered, the name slipping out of her throat like a conditioned reflex. Maya's expression changed in a microsecond. A void appeared in her eyes, so fast Elena thought she had imagined it. "Claire? Ravenwood doesn't have anyone named Claire. You're tired, Elena. Eat your lunch. I got the sandwich you like best." Maya pushed the plate toward Elena. The sandwich smelled of rusted metal. Chapter 4. The Second Floor and the Frozen Numbers. 3:30 p.m. The dismissal bell rang, loud and final. Students flooded out of the gates like a river, desperate to escape the sterile atmosphere. Elena stood frozen in the hallway. She felt an invisible pull toward the stairs leading to the north wing of the second floor, an area that was supposed to have been closed for renovations years ago. As the last footsteps left the lobby, the space became so quiet that Elena could hear her own heartbeat. And then it rang. Bong, bong. The second bell. It wasn't the piercing electronic chime of the school. It was the sound of bronze, deep and muffled, carrying the breath of decades past. Elena climbed to the second floor. The classrooms here had no windows to the outside. On the bulletin board, tattered flyers from 2014 were still pinned. A wall clock was dead, the minute hand frozen at the 17-minute mark. 4:17 p.m. At the end of the hallway, hanging in midair without a mount, was a large bronze bell. Its surface was etched with names. Elena approached, her trembling fingers touching the bottom row of text. "The deeper you dig, the more you will find yourself dissolving." Elena spun around. Old Bill, the janitor everyone thought was senile, was standing there with his broom. He wasn't sweeping trash. He was sweeping the dust motes of light dancing on the floor. "Bill, who is Claire? Why is her name the same as my middle name?" Bill looked at the bell, his eyes full of pity. "This school has a self-defense mechanism, little girl. It cannot stand imperfection. When a student suffers something terrible, an accident, a sudden departure, it disrupts the order of perfection, and Ravenwood fixes it." "How does it fix it?" Elena asked, trembling. "It erases the old person and creates a new one from the leftover scraps of memory. A cleaner person, without pain, without scars. Claire fell from this very hallway on a rainy afternoon, and the next morning, Elena appeared at that desk with a perfectly installed set of new memories." Bill stepped closer, his voice a whisper. "You are not a human being. You are a seamless replacement." Elena burst into the faculty lounge. She needed files. She needed proof. Mrs. Hawthorne was sitting there as if she had been waiting for a long time. On the desk was a stack of old essays, the paper yellowed just like the scrap Elena found that morning. Prompt: write about your most painful memory. Author: Claire Moore. Elena read the lines. Claire wrote about the feeling of being isolated, of wanting to vanish because no one understood her. The end of the essay was blurred by dried water spots, likely tears. "See?" Mrs. Hawthorne said, fiddling with a piece of chalk. "Claire prayed to disappear. The school simply granted her wish. We gave you a new life, Elena, a Maya who loves you, a family without cracks. Why do you want to return to Claire's ruins?" "Because it's not me!" Elena screamed. "It's all a lie. Maya looks through me because she's actually looking for Claire. Everyone is living a clean, sterilized lie." Elena didn't go home. She hid in the restroom until night fell completely. Ravenwood at night lost its modern facade. It revealed its true form as a concrete monster. She returned to the bell. Daniel Cross was already there. He wasn't surprised to see her. "Who are you in this story, Daniel?" Elena asked. "I'm the one the school forgot to erase," Daniel laughed bitterly. "I am the witness. I saw Claire fall. I saw reality warp when they created you. I sit by the fire exit because I hope that one day I can lead everyone out of here." Maya and Lucas appeared from the shadows. Their eyes were vacant, like puppets waiting for a command. "Elena, go home," Maya said, her voice sounding as if it were coming through a distorted speaker. "We have a math test tomorrow. Have you studied?" "Ring the bell, Elena," Daniel urged. "If you ring it with all your will to exist as a real human, even a suffering one, this reality will shatter." Elena stood before the bronze bell. She saw her reflection on the polished metal, but it wasn't the face of Elena Moore she saw in the mirror every morning. It was a girl with sorrowful eyes, messy hair, and a small scar on her forehead. Claire. She understood that if she rang the bell, Elena Moore, the beautiful, happy, beloved girl, would die. In her place, a broken Claire Moore would be reborn, or perhaps both would vanish into nothingness together. Elena reached out. Her fingers touched the cold frame of the bell. "I choose the pain," she whispered, "because pain is the only thing that proves I ever lived." She pulled the invisible rope with all her might. Bong! The sound exploded like an earthquake. The white walls of Ravenwood began to crack. The fluorescent lights shattered into 1,000 shards of glass. Maya, Lucas, Mrs. Hawthorne, they all melted away like wax figures held over a flame. The next morning, 7:40 a.m., the path to Ravenwood High School was covered in dry leaves. A strong wind blew dust into the air. The school looked old, weathered, and covered in patches of peeling paint. In the literature class of a young new teacher, he flipped through the register. "Elena Moore?" No one answered. He looked down at the third desk by the window. It was empty, with only a few dust motes dancing in the honest sunlight. However, at the end of the second-floor hallway, an area long abandoned after the tragic accident of a girl named Claire years ago, someone heard a faint laugh. On the dusty bronze bell, the name of Claire Moore was no longer at the bottom. It had vanished, replaced by a pristine white space, as if someone had just turned to a new page, ready to write a real life, one that was no longer perfect. The bell for class rang, but this time it carried the warmth of the truth.